Her name was Danielle Carter, and for most people in the financial world, that name carried quiet weight. Danielle wasn't born into wealth or privilege. She grew up in a small neighborhood where opportunities were rare and success felt like something meant for someone else. But Danielle had always believed in something different. She believed that discipline, patience, and relentless work could open doors that once seemed permanently closed. Over the years, she proved it. She studied harder than anyone around her. She built connections slowly, carefully. And step by step, she climbed into the competitive world of finance, an industry where people like her were rarely given the benefit of the doubt. Eventually, Danielle helped build something remarkable. A fast-growing financial institution that promised to bring fairness and opportunity to communities often ignored by traditional banks. Her strategy, leadership, and vision helped the company expand across multiple cities. To investors and executives, she was known as a brilliant strategist. But to strangers, she was just another woman walking through the door. That morning, Danielle decided to visit one of the bank's busiest branches. It was supposed to be a routine visit, nothing unusual, nothing dramatic. She simply wanted to observe operations quietly, the way she often did. The branch was buzzing with customers and employees rushing through their usual routines. No one there realized who had just walked in. And within minutes, a simple misunderstanding, mixed with quiet prejudice, would turn an ordinary morning into a moment that would shake the entire institution to its core. Danielle stepped deeper into the branch, quietly observing the flow of customers moving from one counter to another. It was something she had done many times before, walking into different locations unannounced, watching how employees treated people when they believed no executives were around. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The tellers were busy counting bills. Customers stood patiently in line. Phones rang softly behind the glass counters. It looked like any normal banking day. But then something changed. As Danielle approached the front desk, a subtle shift passed through the room. One employee glanced at her, then quickly looked away. Another followed her movements with cautious eyes. The friendly atmosphere that greeted other customers seemed to vanish the moment she stepped forward. She waited in line quietly, holding a simple folder in her hands. When her turn finally came, the teller's smile didn't last long. Instead of the usual greeting, the woman behind the counter studied Danielle carefully, almost suspiciously. Her eyes moved from Danielle's face to her clothes, then to the folder she was carrying. The warmth other customers received only moments earlier had disappeared. Danielle calmly explained that she needed access to certain internal account records. The request was routine. But the reaction was not. The teller hesitated. Her fingers stopped above the keyboard. For a moment, she simply stared, as if trying to solve a puzzle that didn't make sense to her. Within seconds, another employee approached the counter. Then another. Their quiet whispers filled the air as they exchanged confused looks. Danielle could feel the tension growing around her, like invisible walls slowly closing in. One staff member disappeared into a back office. Moments later, a branch supervisor walked out. The supervisor didn't greet Danielle warmly. Instead, she looked at her the same way the others had, with doubt, suspicion, and thinly hidden judgment. Danielle remained calm. She had seen this look before. The supervisor asked for identification, something far beyond what other customers were being asked for that morning. When Danielle politely handed over a simple ID card, the supervisor examined it for far longer than necessary, turning it back and forth as if searching for proof that something about this woman didn't belong. Whispers continued behind the counters. Customers nearby began to notice. Some stared. Others shifted uncomfortably, sensing that something awkward and unfair was unfolding in front of them. But the situation was only getting worse. Instead of resolving the issue, the supervisor quietly signaled another employee. Moments later, a security guard stepped into the lobby. The atmosphere inside the branch changed instantly. The friendly sounds of everyday banking faded, replaced by heavy silence. People who had come to deposit checks or withdraw cash now watched as the guard slowly approached Danielle. His posture was cautious. His expression serious. And suddenly, the woman who had helped build the very institution they were standing in, was being treated like someone who didn't belong there at all. Danielle stood still, her calm expression hiding the storm building beneath the surface. Because what none of them knew, was that in just a few minutes, the truth about who she really was would turn this entire moment upside down. The security guard stopped just a few feet from Danielle. The entire lobby had fallen into an uncomfortable silence. Customers who had come in for ordinary banking business now stood frozen, watching the scene unfold. Some whispered quietly. Others simply stared, unsure of what they were witnessing. The supervisor's voice carried a firm edge as she signaled the guard to step closer. Danielle felt the weight of dozens of eyes on her. In that moment, the situation had gone far beyond a simple misunderstanding. She wasn't being treated like a customer anymore. She was being treated like a problem that needed to be removed. The guard politely, but firmly, asked her to step away from the counter. Danielle didn't move. Not out of anger. But out of something deeper, a quiet resolve. For years, she had worked tirelessly to build a financial institution that promised fairness and opportunity. She had spent countless nights reviewing strategies, meeting investors, expanding branches, and shaping policies designed to help communities that traditional banks had often overlooked. And now, inside one of the busiest branches of that very institution, she was being treated like she didn't belong. The supervisor crossed her arms, clearly convinced she was in the right. Employees behind the counter exchanged nervous glances, unsure whether they were watching a routine security situation, or something far more serious. Then Danielle slowly reached into the folder she had been holding since she entered the bank. The movement caught everyone's attention. The security guard stiffened slightly. The supervisor leaned forward. From inside the folder, Danielle pulled out a simple document, followed by a small identification card. She placed them both gently on the counter. For a moment, no one spoke. The supervisor picked up the card with visible impatience. But the second her eyes landed on the name, her expression changed. Confusion. Then disbelief. The color drained from her face as she read the title printed beneath Danielle's name. Around them, the silence inside the branch grew even heavier. Because in that exact moment, the people who had questioned her, doubted her, and called security on her, were suddenly realizing the truth. The woman they had just tried to remove from the building, was the CEO of the entire bank. For several long seconds, no one in the branch moved. The supervisor's hands trembled slightly as she stared at the identification card again, as if hoping she had somehow read it wrong. But the title beneath Danielle's name didn't change. Chief Executive Officer. The same woman they had just questioned, doubted, and nearly forced out of the building. A wave of quiet shock spread through the lobby. Employees who had been whispering moments earlier now stood frozen behind their counters. The security guard slowly stepped back, realizing the situation had turned into something far more serious than anyone expected. Danielle didn't raise her voice. She didn't show anger or humiliation. Instead, she calmly looked around the room, at the staff, the customers, and the supervisors who had been so certain she didn't belong there. In that silence, the truth became impossible to ignore. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a reflection of something deeper, an assumption made within seconds, based not on facts, but on perception. Later that day, Danielle held a meeting with the leadership team of the entire institution. Policies were reviewed. Training programs were strengthened. Procedures meant to protect fairness and dignity were rewritten and enforced across every branch. Not out of revenge, but out of responsibility. Because a bank built on trust cannot survive if the people inside it judge others before they even know who they are. The incident quickly became a powerful lesson across the company. But its message went far beyond the walls of that building. Because for many people, this moment wasn't surprising at all. It was simply another reminder of a reality that still exists in places where fairness should never be questioned. And that leaves us with a difficult thought. If even a CEO can be treated this way inside her own institution, how many others face the same judgment every single day without anyone ever realizing it? Maybe the real question isn't whether stories like this still happen. The real question is, what will we do to make sure they stop?